My fellow Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, just a quick update. A couple of things I want to talk to you guys about. First of all, I want to make a couple of qualifications on the back of my video yesterday, on the back of a couple of your comments that I think are very fair, and I need to address those. I want to talk about the right back situation because that gets really, really interesting in the next 2-3 weeks in terms of what to do, and it's a really interesting discussion because this is going to be a bit of a pickle that Xabi Alonso is in terms of decision making. And then I want to talk about the Vini situation again because, there was a podcast. Tony Kroos has a podcast, and he was talking about the Vini situation. And I think we need to revisit his substitution relative to the merits. Now, I think we all agree we don't like his behavior when he's subbed, but whether or not he should be subbed is a very important issue, and I think warrants a discussion. And then finally, just to mention, to give Xabi a little bit of credit, because I think he has definitely improved. Some specific players, I think, are really playing at another level, and we have to give him credit, so I want to discuss that as well. Thanks for joining me. As always, just a quick update. Let me give you my thoughts. Thanks for joining me. Let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Madrid. Okay, just a few quick comments. Now, first of all, I just want to make a couple of qualifications. Things I said in the video yesterday, and a couple of you guys made interesting comments. The first one, and I really appreciate, the person that mentioned this to me. I was sort of saying that Barca has a tendency to project. So the stuff that they do, they kind of try to project on others, and that's kind of a psychological way of trying to keep people confused, etc. And at the time I said, well, it's something that you see a lot from sort of narcissists or people with antisocial personality disorders. And somebody very rightfully mentioned that I shouldn't say those things because the implication is that people that have antisocial personality disorders might be mean or prone to mean behavior, stuff like that. So I shouldn't have said it in that way, and I really apologize. I didn't mean to. Anybody is capable of sort of acting poorly, and the example of sort of projecting what you're doing onto others is certainly not exclusive to any category or demographic. So that came out the wrong way, and I certainly apologize. But thank you for correcting me on that. That was probably not the right way of phrasing that. Okay, another thing I want to address is a few of you guys sort of said, how can you possibly propose that the government intervene if you know that the head of the federation is corrupt and La Liga, etc.? I said, well, a government could fix it by replacing the heads of these important organizations. And a couple of you suggested, well, that's sort of fascist, right? That things aren't going your way, so you want the government to replace it and it sounds like fascism. What kind of a solution is that? And I do take your point, but I do want to qualify this because I'm not talking about, this isn't politics where, or like in the US where, one president puts in his crony FBI director and then the other one comes into power, puts in his crony FBI director. I am not talking about substituting one crony for another. I'm talking about simply replacing, if you know for a fact, and we do, that the system is completely corrupt and all of these agencies that operate under the government, these are all national entities, they're not private companies. These are clearly corrupt and they're run by corrupt people where there's a very clear corrupt agenda, and it's been going on forever. And I think that replacing, asking that the government do something to replace corruption is not, I don't think is tantamount to fascism, because I'm not proposing that we put in somebody that's a crony for Real Madrid. I would be happy if you brought in a bunch of English refs, totally neutral international refs. I'd be happy if the Liga was managed by an international organization that was totally objective. I'm not talking about replacing one crony for another. That would be sort of quasi-fascism. I'm talking about cleaning out corruption, and that's not fascism, that's governance. That's what a government does. When a government identifies corruption, a government should do something about it. So, I do understand where you're coming from, but I disagree that this would represent, fascism or anything like that. What it is good governance. And again, I don't want it, the league or the federation sort of replaced by our cronies. I don't want that. You can bring in anybody you want that is truly objective, and that would be totally acceptable to me. So I just want to make that qualification. Okay, let's move on to footballing matters. Look, the right back situation is getting very, very interesting. Okay, Carvajal is going to be out for a few weeks. He had an operation again on his knee. And we're going to have very important decisions to make. Now, Trent apparently is match fit because he has been training with the first team regularly. So he probably will be match fit for the Valencia match and certainly for Anfield. And the big question is, what do you do? Because Fede has been doing a phenomenal job in that right wing. I know that he hates to play there, and I know that we love to see Fede in the middle of the pitch. But he is a very, very good solution. And we have to weigh that against Trent. And Trent, to be honest, of the new players that came, Trent was probably the most shy, I think. I think probably had the hardest time in terms of adaptation. He played well. He didn't do anything wrong, but he looked a little bit shy, a little bit tentative, and I think didn't quite reach a level of connection with the rest of the squad. And I think to bring him now, to bring him in as a starter now, you're always going to have that uncertainty of, is he going to perform sort of appropriately because he hasn't had enough time to play with the squad. So this poses a very serious dilemma for Xabi Alonso. I think I know what I would do. Obviously you brought Trent to play, and Fede is not supposed to be a permanent right back, but you just have to weigh the options at the moment in terms of who is more fit. Now, don't forget that we have plenty of options in the midfield. When Fede plays right back, it's not like we suffer in the middle of the pitch because we have so many options in the midfield. So, we have Camavinga and we have Arda and we have Mastantuono and Ceballos, and there's plenty of bodies in the middle of the pitch, combinations that we can come up with. That is not the case with the right back position. We have very limited resources there. So I don't think that it's criminal to keep Fede as right back. I'll tell you, I'd love to hear what you guys think. I'll tell you what I think, what I would do. I would start Trent against Valencia and see how he does. If Trent plays a very solid game against Valencia and he looks like he's in good shape, then I would start him in Anfield. And I think it would be a big statement for him in terms of confidence. It's a very symbolic match for him going back to Liverpool. That's what I would do. But I would test him against Valencia and make sure that he is in tip-top form and plays well. If he doesn't, if he plays and does not perform well, or if he doesn't play at all, then I would be reluctant to bring him out in Anfield. This is going to be a very tough game, an incredibly physical rival. These guys are hyper-vertical, hyper-physical, high-velocity football. This is going to be a very difficult match. I know Liverpool isn't doing great this year, but I don't care. They're a very difficult team. Anfield is a very tough place to play, and I think we need to go in there being 100% sure of what we're doing. So I would try Trent against Valencia. If he looks good, I would give him a shot in Anfield. If he plays like crap, I would bring Fede back as right back in Anfield. And if he doesn't play, I certainly wouldn't want his first game back to be against Liverpool away. I think that would just be too much. But it is a bit of a pickle, and I'd love to hear your opinion because it is a slightly tricky situation. Okay, let's talk about Vini again. And there's still so much talk about his reaction when he was subbed. You can imagine here that the whole Barca press machine is demonizing Vini as much as they can. They've just gone completely, any chance they get to demonize Vini, they do. Now, I have mentioned that I disagree with his reaction. I think it's disrespectful, and I stand by that. But a different question is whether Vini deserved to be subbed or not. Now, interestingly, Tony Kroos has a podcast in Germany, and he was talking about the Vini situation, and he was quite forgiving. He sort of said, look, if you've been a player, you understand how it feels, and so he sort of, completely understands Vini's reaction, suggests that maybe it's not ideal and that he should try to keep it in check, but that he certainly understands the reaction. I understand it as well, although I think it's just not a good look at all. But in terms of whether or not he should be subbed, this is something that we need to look at more closely. Now, Vini, I mentioned in my post-match analysis, I didn't think he should have been subbed in the 71st minute. I think he had plenty of football left, but I think there were a couple of balls that he didn't chase, and I think Xabi took him off because there were a couple of balls that he didn't chase. And I remember one of them distinctly, where the sort of Barca players kind of went right by him, and he didn't press the ball. And I remember there was some sort of bit of noise in the stands as well. I wasn't the only one that noticed that. But the question is, I mean, should we substitute a player just because he doesn't chase the ball 2 or 3 times? When you're talking about a player that has been such a difference maker, because to be honest, if you look at the statistics, look at these numbers. I mean, do you think Vini deserves to be taken off? I mean, it's something that you really need to think about, because statistically, he's doing unbelievably well these years. And I mean, and look at some of these numbers. He is 99th percentile in progressive carries, 96th in the top 4% in key passes, the top 5% in successful dribbles. This is in the top 5 European leagues. He's in the top 5 percentile of non-penalty goals plus assists, in the top 6 percentile for non-penalty goals, in the top 6 percentile for assists. So you're talking about one of the most efficient players and effective, dangerous forwards in all of Europe. Do you really take him off just because he doesn't chase 2 or 3 balls? Now, I'm leaving that question open-ended, and you can tell me what you guys think. But it does seem to me that Xabi is going to be a stickler for the system. And it really does look like he takes this pressing thing really seriously. And if you're out of gas, you don't have enough gas to press, then he's not going to let you attack. You're going to do neither. But it does seem like he takes this really, really seriously. But it does leave the question open. Vini is an impactful player. He was playing well. Are we jumping the gun with some of these substitutions? Because it felt a bit early to me. The statistics don't lie. This is a difference maker of a player. So are we really going to pull him off just because he slows down on the pressing side of things? So anyway, just a kind of an interesting question, because the Vini discussion has gone bananas here. Everybody's talking about absolutely, Vini is the topic of conversation everywhere. But anyway, just something to think about, and I'd love to hear your point of view. Okay, one last thing to mention that, I just wanted to highlight, that I was talking about it with my uncle this morning. Xabi, and we have to give him a lot of credit, and I know that so far it looks like we're winning, but maybe not that convincingly, etc. But let's be honest, he has improved so many players. I mean, he has made a material difference. I can tell you, certainly in terms of intensity, we're playing a lot better. We're much more vertical, much quicker. The ball circulates faster. We're pressing better, recovering faster. We look more dangerous. We're creating more chances. I think we look better relative to last year in every single respect. And we have to admit that he's done a tremendous job. Look at some of the players are playing at their highest level. Look at Tchouaméni. Tchouaméni is unrecognizable. So, there was a match where he was sort of whistled last year, and ever since he got those whistles, he's really turned his game around. But since Xabi's arrival, Tchouaméni is just a different player. He is right now playing like one of the best pivots in the world. He's been flawless. He's sort of, in my ratings, an 8 or a 9 every single match. He has visibly improved Tchouaméni. By the way, Arda Güler, he's visibly improved Arda Güler. Arda's a player that it just like nothing like last year. He barely got to play, but looked kind of sort of low on confidence when he did. This year, Arda Güler is a totally different player. He's confident. He's a difference maker. He's sort of our most creative player, and we're getting the most out of Arda Güler, and I think we have to give Xabi credit for that. Look at Militao. Militao was another example. This is a player that, medically shouldn't be walking, but he's playing unbelievable football, playing at the level of prior to either of his injuries. And again, we have to give credit to Xabi. How the hell did he get Militao so focused, so hungry, so driven? So maybe it wasn't all Xabi, but I'm sure he was a part of it. Look at Kylian. Kylian is playing out of his skin. Yeah, he scored a lot of goals last year, but he looks a hell of a lot better this year. He just looks better. He looks quicker, sharper. He's scoring more. He looks so alive. Vini is playing much better than he did last year. Last year He was very irregular. He would disappear for stretches at a time. This year he's making much more of a difference. He has that explosiveness back. I think Vini has visibly improved. Look at Jude. Jude, even after an operation, I think we can start to sort of judge him again. He played a full game against Barca. I think Jude looks really, really good. And this is a player coming off a really tough operation on his shoulder. So I think Xabi is doing a wonderful job, I think, with some of these players, and we have to give him credit. So all in all, I'm really pretty encouraged. Okay, listen, this is a short video, just a few things that I wanted to mention, but of course I'd love to get your take, so please, if you have anything to say, mention it in the comment section. But anyway, that was it, just a short one today. Thanks for joining me. As always, love all you guys, and as always, a la Madrid.